Hello everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another video over here on That's Comical, and if you're watching it happens to be a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Well, we're at the end of another month of comic book reading and seeing what my statistics and my top picks are, as always here on Stats, Trends, and Picks, and it was so funny to see how this specific comic book month went, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But it was very much an average one. There was definitely some good reads, a couple of bad reads, and a few that were just somewhere in between. But let's go right to the numbers. By the way, I also want to apologize for not making this video so quickly. Normally, I'm very efficient when it comes to getting this to you guys on time, but because of the fact that June ended right in the weekend of 4th of July, and I was traveling, I was on vacation, and, you know, also dealing with the dad life, it can be a little bit hectic with a couple of schedule changes for the summer, but no worries, here we are, so let's get to the numbers. So, an average one, it looks like we're seeing me somewhere in the mid-30s to low 40s when it comes to the amount of books that I purchase each month, and I'm also very interested to see where the stats are because, as you can plainly see, Image seems to have taken control of the top spot, and we're also seeing a nice little happy thing, and that is the fact that the independent books are slowly finally starting to creep up a little bit in regards to my purchasing totals. So when we take a look at the percentages, once again, we see that Image has taken the top spot. Almost 30% of my purchasing went to Image. It's still nice to see DC holding on strong, but I am going to warn you guys, DC is probably going to drop a little bit considering the fact that we're in the middle of the Night Terrors event, which is going from July into September, and I personally have no interest in reading those books, so my Green Lantern and my Shazam and even my Detective Comics will be on hiatus for the summer. But there's still a couple of DC books that I am interested in, a couple of miniseries that are coming out, and will one of them be discussed as one of my top predictions? We will see. So then, of course, we see the charts, and this is a very interesting thing, because we see that Marvel did get to the top at one point in time, and so did DC, but now it looks like we see the DC, Marvel, and Image lines pretty much neck and neck, and then I'm nice to see the other conglomerate, which is Green, just slowly creeping up to the top. So I'd like to see what the next month is going to bring. So, how did I do in terms of my predictions? Well, we all know that in May of 2023, I had my very first perfect month in which I predicted everything correctly, but this time around, we went right into the opposite direction, and no, this was not intended or planned, so I had my very first imperfect month, meaning all of my predictions for the month of June ended up not being my top pick. So let's take a look at what actually took those spots. So when we take a look at the first week of June of 2023, I was going to give it to DC Comics The Flash 800, and it was still a very good read. Seeing some of the big names that have written The Flash in the last 30 years, like Mark Waid and Jeff Johns, nice to see them writing these really good little shorts about Wally West, but we also got a little taste of what Simon Spurrier is going to be bringing to the table in September when The Flash begins anew, and I, for one, am not going to be interested in reading it. But what did take my top spot? Well, it was the final issue of the Image miniseries The Ambassadors, number 6, by Mark Millar. I enjoyed this short series so much. I know that they're going to be playing a very big role in an upcoming event from Mark Millar over at Image, and I just really loved the concept, I loved the characters, and I truthfully hope that we're going to see the Ambassadors in another miniseries or possibly an ongoing series somewhere down the line. For the second week of June, I went towards DC again, and wanted to try and see if Green Lantern issue number 2 would be a good read, because Jeremy Adams did such a great job on The Flash, loved his first Green Lantern issue, and I did have a good time with the second issue as well. But this time around, it was Boom Studios that took the top spot, with the second issue of Ghost Lore by Cullen Bunn. This is a book that just seemed so interesting to me. It came out of nowhere. The first issue was nothing that I anticipated, and the second issue was just out there. I love the second issue of this story. I am definitely very much on board for the rest of this miniseries because the first 2 issues have truly got me hooked. If you haven't found Ghost Lore yet, go to your local comic book shop. You gotta check this thing out. For the 3rd week of June, I was giving it to DC again for World's Finest, issue number 16 by Mark Waid. And once again, this is the penultimate issue of the 3rd story arc. Great book. Lots of action, lots of comedy. I have been enjoying this series ever since the 1st issue, but you know that already. And the 3rd story arc, while a lot of people think it might be the weakest one, I'm still having a great time with it. But that is not the book that took the top spot. We went back to Boom Studios. Boom Studios is a name that I haven't really been talking about on my channel in quite some time, so it's really nice to see Boom Studios really making a comeback in regards to my interests. And I gave it to this brand new 6-issue miniseries from Dan Abnett, who used to write Aquaman, and is the 1st issue. It's called Wild's End. It was described as the War of the Worlds meets The Wind in the Willows. It's anthropomorphic animals in a far-off land, and it follows this group of them that are on a ship, and then when they come back from their journey, they find out that something has happened to their town. What I really appreciated about this was the atmosphere. It was so calming because it was out on sea, but at the same time, you constantly see wording of what's going on a frequency on the radio, and you suddenly see it start to change as the story progresses, and you get this very uncomforting feeling while you're watching this transition to a very dark tone, and then when you see the final page, you go, oh man, I don't know what's going on, but I want to see what happens in the next issue. I highly recommend this book, guys. Wild's End number 1. It was such a cool read, and I'm really curious to see where the next issue is going to go. And for the final week, I was going to give it to one of my favorite writers, Robert Venditti, and his Dark Horse miniseries, 1st issue, Savage Squad 6. But do you want to know why I didn't give that the top spot? Because the book got pushed, and I had to figure out where to get the top spot to. So I ended up going, believe it or not, to IDW, and I gave it to the 4th issue, the penultimate issue of TMNT, The Last Ronin, The Lost Years, issue number 4. This has not been as good as the original Last Ronin, but this hasn't been horrible. The first couple of issues were definitely a little bit slow, but there definitely were some good things found in there, but this specific issue just really picked things up as the penultimate, so I'm hoping that this series ends off on a really good note. And I'm hoping that I will get to read Savage Squad 6 and give you guys a little discussion and see if it might actually take a top spot. So, we're now officially going to move into July, and we're going to see what my top picks are going to be for that month. So for the first week in July, and just so you know, while I'm recording this video, yes, I did get the first week of July 2023's new comic books, but I haven't read them yet. But I still have a feeling I know what I'm going to be giving my top spot to, and it's because I love this author. Image Comics has a mini-series called Swan Songs coming out, and it is being written by none other than W. Maxwell Prince. If you haven't seen our Creator's Notes episode on W. Maxwell Prince, you must. Everything that he writes, I read. I've loved everything from Art Brute to Ice Cream Man to Haha. He is just an incredible writer, and this is his first new thing outside of his ongoing Ice Cream Man in a very long time, so I'm really hoping that this book is good. For the second week in July, sure, I could give it to Savage Squad 6 if I was able to, but I have a feeling it's not going to get the top spot because there's another book that's coming out that week that I am even more excited for because it's Jeff Lemire, and that is his new miniseries from Image Comics, Fish Flies number 1. I read the Free Comic Book Day tease, I loved it, and I am so excited for another great Jeff Lemire story. For the third week in July, I am going to go back to Image Comics. So once again, I was plugging DC last month and it didn't seem to work out, but now I seem to be plugging Image, so we'll see if that works out. And I'm giving it to Mark Millar's big crossover miniseries event, The Big Game. And this is going to be written by him, and the art is going to be by Pepe Larraz. This is going to incorporate Miller World stuff. So I don't know what we're going to see in here, but I do believe the ambassadors are going to show up. But we could see anything from Kick-Ass to the Kingsman in this, so I am very excited to see what this miniseries is all about. I'm also wondering it because I haven't really read much of Miller's stuff, so I'm wondering if this will finally give me the incentive to maybe pick up a Kick-Ass trade, because I love the movie, the first movie, but we will see. And for the final week in July of 2023, my prediction for the top spot is going to go to DC Comics. And it's because it's a Black Label book by Mark Waid, but what makes it even more exciting is the fact that I cannot recall any time when DC Black Label had a Superman story coming out. This is Mark Waid taking on Superman, which he does best, and it is called Superman: The Last Days of Lex Luthor. It is the first of 3 issues, guys. I'm so excited for this because Mark Waid has been doing so many amazing things for DC, whether you're reading Superman, Batman, World's Finest, Shazam. He is just firing on all cylinders, along with some of the writers that I've mentioned today, like Jeff Lemire. But I love the Black Label books, and the miniseries that I have read in the past couple of years, I have very much enjoyed. I found them different, intriguing, and the fact that we are getting the Big Blue Boy Scout in a dark story that is not for kids, who couldn't be excited about that if they are Superman fans? So that's it, everybody. That's going to wrap up my stats, trends, and picks for June 2023. I'm wondering if you could put in the comments what were some of your top picks for June of 2023, and what are you looking forward to the most in July. But in the meantime, everybody, I'll see you in the next one.